Breaking news coming in. US President Donald Trump has announced reciprocal tariff. Donald Trump has said, we will charge what countries charge the United States. Trump says reciprocal tariffs are in the interest of fairness. He's very clearly saying whatever tariff any country imposes on the United States of America or imports from the US will impose the same tariffs on those countries. His spokesperson in the White House had said this is a very simple principle, and Donald Trump has just announced it. Listen into Donald Trump, I'll get you more on the story.
And on trade, I have decided for purposes of fairness that I will charge a reciprocal tariff, meaning whatever countries charge the United States of America, we will charge them, no more, no less. In other words, they charge us a tax or tariff, and we charge them the exact same tax or tariff. Very simple. Nobody knows what that number is unless you go by the individual country. You can see what it is if you go to the individual country and you look at what they're charging us. In almost all cases, they're charging us vastly more than we charge them, but those days are over.
Now, how does that impact India? How does that impact several other countries across the world, be it China, be it Canada, be it Mexico, be it so many other countries? But on this special broadcast, we will focus on India. And I want to quickly bring in my colleagues Shiv Arur and Geeta Mohan joining us for more on this. Shiv, this had been Trump's stated position, and he's done that. But the timing, Shiv, very curious, hours before his meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Gaurav, I interpret this in two different ways. Number one, this is Trump sticking to his guns on the promises that he made in his campaign. It is very clear economic muscle and the kind of economic nationalism that Trump had promised in the United States is going to spare no relationship, at least as far as these beginning weeks and months of the Trump administration are concerned. But I don't think we should be overly concerned, because I actually see a concession in this announcement. Remember, when it came to Mexico, Canada, even the European Union, Trump has named those countries and mentioned those tariffs. In this particular case, it appears to be a blanket announcement, even though Trump has been on record to say that India has more tariffs than, nearly any other country. India is a tariff king. He has said all of those things. But it seems to me that the US president may have made something of a concession by making a larger, more general, sweeping statement about tariffs in general. I don't want to read too much into it. I don't want to, jump the gun and say that is in keeping with the fact that Modi, someone he shares a strong personal bond with, is right there, and he's going to be meeting him, in just a few hours from now, Gaurav. But remember that this is Trump. He does what he wants. The fact that he has stuck to his guns, decided to make the announcement even while Modi is there, should be seen as very signature Trump muscle flexing. It's showing that, his priority and commitment to his constituency, which is economic muscle, a kind of no-nonsense, taking no prisoners policy as far as tariffs is concerned, is something he's not going to compromise on, no matter which relationship is on the table.
Very interesting. You should mention that. Geeta Mohan joins us from Washington, D.C. Siddharth Zarabi, managing editor, Business Today, with me on this special broadcast. Geeta, how should India be viewing this? Okay, give me a moment as we try and reestablish this link with Geeta Mohan. Siddharth Zarabi, how should India view this? Trump in the past has called India the tariff king. In the past, comments have been made that India has the highest tariff. So does this adversely impact us?
Well, very clearly what President Trump has done is that no one has been spared. The context of the announcement is that this is a reciprocal tariff policy architecture that he has unveiled. The U.S. Trade Representative will now, from the early accounts as we understand, do a country-by-country analysis, Gaurav. And that analysis will therefore look at individual countries and tariffs. Therefore, this is far more sweeping than what had been anticipated. so far, Gaurav, the critical thing for us all to understand is that there were individual countries that had been spoken about. Individual actions had been taken against China or, for example, Mexico. What he has done today is to announce a reciprocal tariff policy that will have a global impact. Now, what will it be for individual countries, including like India? That the U.S. trade representatives report, and there are already reports that are emerging that U.S. officials have been quoted telling the press that is present there that this tariff could happen as early as a few weeks or it could take a few months, which is where the process of discovery and country-by-country adjustments and impact decisions could be taken. On India, very quickly, before I hand it back to you, Gaurav, please understand, broadly speaking, our average tariffs are somewhere above 11%. When you look at average across goods, the U.S. tariffs are 2.5%, quarter to 3%. So obviously, on paper, there is a gap. However, it is not as if all categories that are imported into India see higher tariffs. India has already addressed some of the key critical pain points, including Harley-Davidson, for example, and I believe more will be indicated during the bilateral meeting that is set to take place.
So, Siddharth, before I bring in Shiv, Harley-Davidson's iPhones, these are some of the issues that America is seeking greater access to. Perhaps Tesla, some of those have already been indicated. Donald Trump has also said that India has the highest tariffs. But as far as Indian exports to the US are concerned, be it pharmaceuticals or IT, what gets adversely impacted, Siddharth?
Well, this is basically going to ignite a global trade war. And instead of one action, Gaurav, it is going to be multiple actions that will now continuously pan out. So, first things first, India is going to be impacted. We are likely to see a negative reaction in the Indian stock market early tomorrow once trade opens. That's number one. Which are the sectors that could be impacted? The reports so far indicate that steel has been mentioned, pharma has been mentioned, automobiles as a separate category has also been spoken about. A mention of India as being a high tariff country has perhaps been reiterated today. So what does this tell us? That this is just the beginning. And very clearly, the key point that I bring out again, Gaurav, for our viewers is that this is a sweeping, all-encompassing, broad strokes effort of reciprocal tariffs. Earlier, it was country by country. Now, anyone could get swept in because there are countries who, for various reasons, because of the size of their economy, the level of industrial development in their domestic economy, the need to create local jobs, or sectors like dairy, for instance, these are key concern areas which will now continue to be, like small bombs going off every now and then.
But hold on, the devil lies in the detail. And stay with me, Siddharth. Very, very interesting details that are coming in as Donald Trump speaks, and he's speaking at the White House. We're getting every bit of information first, live and exclusive right now on India Today. Shiv, no reciprocal tariffs on chips and pharma. So pharmaceuticals spared the reciprocal tariff because that is something that US also requires. Cheaper medicines they too require, and that then is good news for India.
It's good news, and it was also expected, Gaurav. There was a little bit of uncertainty over whether the reciprocal tariff would apply, in IT and chips. But this is actually really good news. If this sweeping tariff that Trump has just announced doesn't apply to pharma, which had been expected, because even Trump had made conciliatory noises as far as pharma is concerned, given the many pharma-related wars that the United States is fighting, especially vis-a-vis China. This seemed to be a safe area. The handful of concessions that India had made, around the budget, also, Gaurav, may have had some manner of an effect. I agree with Siddharth. We have to wait for the USTR report to really get a sense of what the implications will be across sectors, and that may actually become much clearer only 2 to 3 weeks from now. But I think the bigger picture, if we zoom out from just the sectors, Gaurav, what this really means is that Trump has signaled, to the world. He's mentioned India, of course, and the fact that Modi is there means that Trump is willing to go the extra mile for his constituency. He's signaling that he's not all, bluster. He's not all just big talk. He's going to put his money where his mouth is, quite literally in this particular case, and play hardball even with a country like India. The reason why I believe there is a silver lining to all of this is none of this should come as a surprise. For weeks now, maybe even months after Trump had won the elections, let's remember very clearly that the T word had been the most used word when it came to India-US relations. So it's not like this has come out of the blue. India has not been blindsided by this. In fact, the entire Indian diplomatic effort has been to ensure that any announcement is actually is not damaging. India can try to contain the kind of implications of what Trump says, and the fact that he's made a 360-degree tariff announcement that affects literally every part of the world. I would see that as a minor diplomatic win, at least in terms of the messaging. It's going to be interesting to see the body language between Modi and Trump in the wake of this big announcement.
Indeed, because it would be very interesting. India has been working around this from the elections when they were happening to the time that Trump was re-elected. Siddharth Zarabi, India knew tariffs and even in Trump 1.0, tariff was a major issue between the two countries. America seeking greater access to Indian markets. When it came to Harley Davidsons, it was a major niggle, and many argued why was India endlessly, negotiating and not closing a deal. Perhaps a small trade deal, and many said India was very close to it. So when you look at pharma, when you look at IT, what do you make of no reciprocal tariffs on pharma and chips?
Gaurav, allow me to also bring in a couple of other elements.
Yes.
Now, as we absorb the fine print, and there isn't still a formal statement, and our viewers will appreciate that news is coming in bits and pieces. Another key element is that this is not that one country imposes high import tariffs and therefore I will retaliate. What the President of the United States has now said, I will look at non-tariff measures also to take action against a country. What are those? For example, if a country is managing its exchange rate, and this is primarily hinting towards China as one of the biggest trading nations in the world, if a country is artificially interfering with its exchange rate, that will also constitute a cause for action under Trump's reciprocal tariffs policy. Tax rates. If you are using value-added tax, which is another euphemism for indirect tax or sales tax, or in its more evolved form, goods and services tax, that can also be one of the grounds. He's laid out 5 principles, with import tariffs being just one of them. So therefore, the world doesn't know what is going to hit them. Individual countries don't know what is going to hit them. All individual countries, and I promise you, those who have any trade exposure to the United States and those who are indirectly impacted, even I will argue that an isolated economy like North Korea will also get impacted, will come under this sweeping 5-point plan, the new trade punch shield that Trump has outlined today. Let's make let's be very clear about it. As far as India is concerned, and my guess and our estimation and our understanding of the situation, in some ways, India has not been singled out for only an India-specific announcement being announced. It's the whole world which is now in President Trump's crosshairs. The bigger trading partners, those who have a far higher share of global trade, have more to worry than India. And for India, there are certain items on which concern our national security, which concern our economic security, which concern our farm sector, our dairy sector, where livelihood protection has been argued by India earlier in WTO, and I imagine there will be some element of reciprocal talks also between the USTR and individual countries. Please note that he has not announced a percentage, 25% tariff hike today, which has happened earlier. So it is different. It is far more serious. It could evolve into something much, much bigger. But there is scope for individual countries to negotiate. And I would say that India is perhaps going to be in a position to negotiate with a very strong hand.
Okay, stay with me. But, Shiv, something like this could throw the world in tailspin just trying to understand this. And as Siddharth was saying, the markets may react rather adversely to this.
But there's going to be a bloodbath in the stock markets, globally. There is no mistake about that. Gaurav, that also, I think, is going to be quite predictable. Siddharth is right. All eyes may have been on what Trump was going to announce, but there was no uncertainty as to whether Trump was going to announce tariffs. It was clear that was going to happen. It was merely a question of what kind of scale, whether countries were going to be singled out, whether he would quantify those tariffs. That hasn't happened, and I think India can take some, at least some symbolic comfort in not being singled out, even though he did mention that India, has more tariffs than any other country. But I think overall, I agree with you, Gaurav, when you say the devil is in the details, because, the pointers that have come out following that statement suggest that each country is going to be approached individually. There will be scope for negotiations. As Siddharth very rightly said, and this is often missed in this conversation, India has a strong hand as far as tariffs is concerned, with the United States, the preemptive and proactive moves that India has made in this regard, not just now, but even earlier.
Yes.
Harley Davidson onwards. Have suggested that India is a country that takes this trade relationship very, very seriously with the United States and has signaled that it is willing to meet the United States halfway or go the distance in order to keep this relationship on steady keel. So India has an excellent trade diplomatic team that has been working, burning the midnight oil to achieve at least this part, not being singled out. Gaurav, remember, you and I understand what this means. It may not be apparent to many, but not being singled out at a time like this, at a time when Trump is singling out China, Mexico, Canada, countries that are very close to it, countries that it shares borders with, is a minor diplomatic achievement for sure. And I think it needs to be mentioned because, like Siddharth said, there's a great deal of uncertainty ahead. These negotiations are going to be difficult. There's going to be a lot of hardball. There's going to be a lot of give and take. I imagine India is going to have to give much more down the road. And that is not a clear road at the moment. So we'll have to see how that goes, Gaurav.
So choppy waters that India would be negotiating, Siddharth, but nimble-footed, factored all of this in. In the budget that Nirmala Sitharaman announced, several aspects and apprehensions had already been addressed, something that White House sources have told India Today's reporters on ground that they've noted what India has done, and it's a step in the right direction, Siddharth?
Well, exactly. And I think that is part of our realization and understanding that this is not an issue that has come up fresh. During Trump 1, there were similar conversations, and we had certain tariff-related actions by the then U.S. administration. Those were negotiated in a way. The Biden administration also had certain sticking points, and that's why the larger trade deal between the India and the United States is something that has always been spoken about by trade experts from both sides, well-wishers really of expanding trade between India and the United States under the rubric of what is called a defense partnership for the 21st century. This has been spoken about. So, Gaurav, one more point that needs to be understood. How far can President Trump go in this? He seems to have acknowledged during this short press statement, perhaps in response to a question from a journalist about the impact on domestic American consumers. America is the largest consuming economy in the world. Why is America important for all economies? Because it is one of the largest consumer nations, and it has outsourced its manufacturing. It has sent out everything in the hope of providing cheaper goods and services to its people. This will lead to a price hike for American consumers who have already been reeling post-COVID under higher inflation, including for gas prices. One more point that has now seems to be becoming clearer. Trump has also offered an olive branch or an escape clause, an exit clause, call you call what you want it, that if a company is manufacturing in the United States, then it will escape these tariffs. So there are multiple options. What he really wants to do is increase local employment and revenues in America.
Perfect. But we'll wait for the fine print for more on this. Siddharth and Shiv, for the moment, many thanks for joining me. Prime Minister Narendra Modi.